Linda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jen. It's so lovely to be here with you.
Well, it's so fantastic to meet a like minded soul who's also working in the same demographic as I am. So, women in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. That it's nice that we share that passion and that our work together is really about helping many women as we transition into menopause and beyond. Now, Linda, with your work as a personal trainer, what I really love is your work with pelvic floor. Like, I so often refer my women off to see a pelvic floor physiotherapist. It wasn't until I met you that I considered actually sending them off to a personal trainer as well so that they can get the exercise. So, would you mind? Well, let's start at the beginning. So, you're a personal trainer. Would you like to talk about your work?
Okay, so I got into personal training because for me, after my husband passed away, I was getting my kids ready to take them skiing. They were 7 years old, twins, and I thought, I'm not fit enough to take them skiing. So I did a quick go in. I've got to get fit in 4 weeks' time, and I've got to be ready for skiing. And it was like, okay, we can do this. And then what happened after that 4 weeks, I took the kids skiing and went, wow, I am so much stronger. I couldn't have carried their skis or, got myself around the mountain. And I came back and went, you know what, there's more to this than just me getting fit to go skiing. So that was how I really fell in love with personal training, though I wasn't a personal trainer then. I was being personal trained. And then I met my lovely second husband. Actually, he's my third. That's a whole other story. And he is a personal trainer. And so after us getting to know each other a little bit, our families assimilating, I decided when someone was taking over the business where he was renting some space, I've gone, why don't we go into this business together? I have a marketing background, which is very different, but my love of sports has always been there. I was doing triathlons before I had the kids. So I knew I loved fitness, but I knew nothing about how to get fit myself. So whether it was a smart decision or not, but I actually think it was one of my best decisions in life I ever made. We went into business together and have a personal training studio. He has a world of experience, which is like where I've learned everything from. And that's where my passion has really come from, because then I went, wow, doing exercise, is such a mental health for me tool that I found that I can shut off for however long I'm training for. So I was then training for an hour a week, but now I probably only would put in half an hour every few days, because that's all I need to do for my own personal benefit. And as I'm aging, we don't need to train as hard and as long, and something I've learned. So yeah, that's how I really got into it. And it is not a chore anymore. Never a chore to exercise. It's just part of me and my day.
Nice. So, I love that you started by experiencing it first and noticing the benefits. So you did talk about some of the benefits, and let's just talk more a little bit briefly
Yeah.
about some of the benefits of exercise.
Okay. This I could go on for forever, but I will tell you the key benefit for me is mental health. I find that it is a switch off for me, because when you're training, and I see this with all my clients as well, when they're with us, even though we might be talking about a lot of things in the world, and they might even tell me what's happening at home or what's happening in life. We talk a lot about our kids, if we've got kids, which is fun, but we do switch off, because it's a time where we stop thinking about, got to put the washing on, and I haven't done this at work. And it's just it's like a mindfulness experience is how I would put it. That's how I find it.
Yeah, I find running is a meditation for me, so I totally get what you mean.
Yes. Now I find running a chore. So, but I'll tell you, because maybe because I'm not a very good runner, but I know what it's like when you run and you get in what we call the zone.
Yeah,
So the zone is like, oh, I'm just feeling great. Everything's working smooth. And yes, it's a meditation in itself, isn't it?
it certainly is. But I
Mm.
also find if I've got something that I'm ruminating on, I get clarity. So sometimes there is that total mind blank and you
Yes.
just get into the zone, and other times it just helps me with clarity on things that I'm pondering. And I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and to that point, and I'm sort of skipping a little bit, but my husband he's dyslexic.
Hmm.
So when he runs, his mind space is where everything clicks on. And
See,
he
I'm
learned that at a
dyslexic too.
young age.
That's possibly the connection.
And so rather than reading, which is really hard for him to do, running gives him the headspace to think, or bike riding, or whatever it is that he does. He does more endurance stuff than I do, but he can go for hours on end. And he comes back with all these wonderful ideas. So not surprising you get that. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
So I took you off track. So we were
Well,
talking
that's
about the
okay.
benefits of exercise,
The
and we were
benefits
talking
of
about
exercise,
mental health.
one is strength. So for me, I know as I age, and I have to say this, and I'll just give myself a little pat on the back for this one, but I'm strong. Now, I'm not super strong. You see, I don't have these big muscles anywhere or anything like that, but I am physically strong because my body moves how I want it to move. And I can feel the muscles in my body when I need them, if that makes sense. So if I'm doing something and my core needs to activate, it will turn on, which means that I have good mobility and ability to move. I can trip and fall, which I do often, but I can pick myself up before I'm actually on the ground. Sometimes I notice that because we do a lot of hiking and mountain bike riding, so we require a lot of that stability.
Mm.
But it's also just being able to pick things up, or reach up higher. I've got my big shopping basket, or someone will say to me when I'm at the supermarket saying, "Can I carry your box of fruit for you or something?" And I go, "Nope, I'm okay. I can do this myself." So it gives me, one, the strength to know that I can pick something up and do it well and move well, but it also gives me that confidence that I can do it. I can move furniture around in the house, or I can make my bed comfortably. And I know this sounds crazy, but there are a lot of the things that we hear about from people when they first start with us, for example, is, "Oh, I just can't pick things up." And then invariably over time, they will just say, "Oh, where I couldn't once make my bed and put my sheets underneath, I now can." And we think that as we age, we're going to lose that muscle tone. And yes, we do. We do lose our muscle tone. And as you would know, that when we're going through our midlife and going through menopause, we do have a muscle decline. However, as I always say, yes, our muscle might decline, but we can still improve it. So that muscle decline, if you don't do anything, you can decline up to 8% of muscle a year.
Mm.
However, if you keep on working, it might be 20 years before you lose that 8%, because you can keep on building it. So I have to say, exercise sometimes is a little painful. It takes effort.
But so do most things in life. So we might as well do something where we're going to get a reward at the end. And
That's
if
right.
that is that we're less fragile when we're older, and that we can, fall over and not break things, or that we can
Mm.
pick things up, I think that is a reward worthy of going through the
Yes.
pain.
Yeah. And getting up and down off the floor. I refuse to be one of these women who, someone was telling me this is what happened to their friend who's the same age as her, so in her mid-60s. So this woman comes in to see us and she's lifting weights. This is her goal, not mine, but she wanted to lift some really heavy weights like deadlifting. And she was up to, I think she even hit 100. Anyway, she came in one day, she was, "Oh, I'm so horrified. One of my friends has got a chair that tilts her out so she can stand up." And she said she's the same age as me. There's no reason why she should. Now, it's not because she's got bad knees or she was particularly overweight and was having some issues with that. No, she just thought that would be easier as she ages, rather than being strong enough that we can squat onto a chair and sit back up again. So, that's so important that we maintain that mobility as we age.
I 100% agree. Like, I'm fully planning on running around with my great grandkids and getting on the floor and
Yes.
playing all sorts of games on the floor with them, and being able to get up and not be the person in the corner that needs help getting out
Yeah.
of chairs, and not living life to the fullest, because I really feel your quality of life is linked
Well,
in with how fit you are.
yes, and it does. It does affect your quality of life. It affects how you feel about yourself. It affects how you move. I mean, and the key things too, as we age, when we talk about exercise, like talk about benefits, we also have bone strength. So
Yes.
that's very important because that declines. We also have our muscle strength. We have our mindset. We're not sleeping as well, but exercise can help promote better sleep,
And better energy.
better energy, and also immunity is another
Yeah.
thing. I mean, when one of the things that when I've talked to many women, when we talk about health and well-being, I think I talked about this with you, and we won't digress too much, but there's some key things that we've been moved through life. So nutrition is one, exercise. So exercise comes up in every single conversation I have, that we still, and when I say exercise, it doesn't have to be a run or picking up 100 kilos. Can be going for a brisk walk.
Yeah.
But it also should include, so we need some cardiovascular health. So we need to get our heart and our blood pumping around our body. We need to have good muscle strength, and we need to have good resistance strength. So the muscle strength is to support our body and our structure and our bones. Our bone strength we obviously need, so we need to do resistance work. So when I talk about resistance work, it's using bands. It's not just lifting heavy things up, but you might lift it up really slowly, and we're resisting as we come back down again. So that's really important. So they're really the key factors: muscle strength.
I think you miss flexibility.
Oh, and flexibility. Yes. Flexibility is a big one. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You want to be able to put our shoes on when we get older, tie
Yes.
up our laces, not have someone do that for us.
Yeah. And it's funny you should say that, because I skipped that in the sense that it's just something that we do at our studio. It's a bit of a mantra. When you come and do exercise, the first thing you should do is your mobility. So you need to warm up, you need to stretch and move slowly, as we say. So it's more of a slow, continual motion to get the blood moving, to get your joints moving, and to get everything into a good space before you go into exercise. Then you may, if you want to, get the heart rate up a little bit, and then go into your mainstay of exercise, being that strength and resistance. And then you should always spend 5 to 10 minutes stretching.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And that's where often your flexibility comes in. Though we often say, if you're training somebody, one of the things is they'll come in and they'll say, okay, I just want to do this. But what we do, and no one's really listening who's with us and don't want to do this, but we'll always sneak in some mobility, stability, and flexibility into a routine.
Nice.
So you might go off and do, lift some weights, and then we'll get you to do something that gets you, twisting, turning, opening up, and then go back into whatever other exercise that might be part of your goal. So that's really important, especially to your listeners, to think, well, when I'm getting trained, let's ask my trainer, are these all the things that we should be doing? So if you're not getting that stretching at the end, maybe you wanted to say to them, can we just add in a bit of a stretch session, just 5 minutes? I mean, they'll comply, but that's something that's worth asking about.
Yes. There is also some research looking at night sweats and sleep and anxiety, and doing a 5-10 minute stretching routine prior to bed. So it doesn't even have to be at the end of the workout. It can be
Oh,
maybe you want to start your day or finish your day like
yes.
that and get some of the benefits like better night's sleep,
Yeah.
less hot flushes, and less anxiety if you do it prior to bed.
Yeah. One of the key things that I like doing, so I just don't, and I always say there's very many different modalities of exercise. You have to find the exercise that lifts you up and gets you going. So for me, I do like my strength exercise, but I also do yoga.
Yes.
And I do yoga with someone else. So I don't want to do yoga at home. I need the motivation to go to a class and do yoga. And for me, yoga is my stretching routine. So it is a strength workout, but it also enables me to open up my hips and my chest and my body, as well as being a beautiful practice where I find also is a bit of a mindfulness practice.
Definitely.
So any modality that works for you, be it Pilates, hiking, bike riding, going for a gym workout, yoga, dance, just keep moving.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, something that I wanted you to touch on was just your interest in pelvic floor health.
Yes.
Because as we're going through, well, we're women. Some of us have had kids, some of us haven't had kids.
Mm.
But going through the transition, it can be an area that plays up. So, it's really nice to know that there's women like yourself that are personal trainers that do specialize in
Yes.
that particular area.
Well, I really found an interest in that, particularly going through menopause. But the more women that I trained, the more I realized that we need to train differently. And I did have to tell my husband that, and I've taught all my staff too, that we must ask about the pelvic floor. So let's start with the first thing before we exercise.
Mhm.
If you've had children, or if you're aging and you are leaking when you laugh or you jump or you run, you should get it checked out. Not necessarily by a personal trainer. Sometimes I pick things up with people and then I will send them off. So where you talked about sending them off to a pelvic floor physio, or there's other, like our osteopath, she focuses on pelvic floor as well. And I just sent someone there recently because it's so important that you get that checked, because as a personal trainer, I'm not the expert. So I will send you off if I feel that there's anything that says to me, there's a little red flag.
Yeah. And it might even be a good point to start with a GP. That way they can do a
Yes.
urine test and just check that there's not an infection or anything else going on. And if needed, there are, like you said, osteopaths that specializing in it, pelvic
Yes.
floor physiotherapists. So not everyone knows that you can do generalized physiotherapy on
Mm.
any part of your body, and
Yes.
you can get specialty women's pelvic health physiotherapists. So
Yes.
yeah, you've got options. Don't suffer in
Yeah.
silence.
And so if you're a personal trainer out there, you should find yourself a partnership with your allied health. So we have, me in particular, I have an osteopath that I go to. I have a physio that we go to. I also have chiropractors, acupuncturists. There's lots of different people, because when people come in, there might be something else that we need to look at. But one of the reasons I got into the pelvic floor is because I started to notice myself as I was aging going, no, sometimes for me, it's more like an urgent wee. And if I don't get to the bathroom in time, I'm going to be honest, I might pee my pants, which is terrible, right? Especially when it first started happening, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, why is this happening? I'm not, again, we talked about this, I'm not getting old. Why am I doing this? So I actually started to look into that. And my husband talked about this thing about turning on the belt, but I thought that wasn't enough. I needed to go get some expert opinions. And then I actually joined it's called Evolution Partnership. So Mish Wright is an expert in pelvic floor exercise. And so I have, in the last year, I've joined them because there's a course that I did through her to make sure that I was fully aware of what I needed to know as a personal trainer to look for. And so that's what you want in a personal trainer, whether it's male or female. We should all know this, because we are not small men. Women are different.
Very much
So,
so.
yeah, so that was one of I feel now that, like, I've got that confidence as a personal trainer to be able to check you. And also, if you've had a baby, the other thing that we should be checking is that we didn't have, now I always say this wrong, but when we are pregnant and our muscles in our tummy diastasis,
Our separation that we get.
yes, separation and stomach, that's also something else I check.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I start with is, when I do the assessment, I have a page just for women. There's women only, though men have pelvic floor problems too, but this is very specific to women. And I ask, there's about 20 questions. They're not long and arduous, but it's like, it's tick boxing. Have you ever been pregnant? Have you ever had a baby? Does this happen to you? The whole heap of questions. And that will give me the red flags if there's something I'm seeing in there. Because it's really quite interesting, because most women think it is normal that if they were to jump or run, that they will leak.
No, that's
And
not
that
normal.
does not have to be normal. Not at all.
It might
So
be common, but there's a difference between something being common and being normal. Just
mm,
because it might happen to you and maybe a selective group of friends doesn't mean that it should be.
yes. And so many people that say, oh yeah, no, I don't have any trouble with my pelvic floor. And I'll go, so I'm going to ask you, I always ask for permission first. I say, are you okay if I ask you some very personal questions? And that's when we'll get into that. And they'll go, oh yeah, I do leak. And I said, well, okay, so something to look at in your pelvic floor. This doesn't have to happen. And they're always surprised going, oh, I just thought that was normal. So it's not, it's common, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
not always about leaking either. Like I don't get the leaking, but I do get the frequency. So I have noticed
Mhm.
that maybe there's a couple more trips to the toilet during that day, or if you're out, you get to know, okay, where are the public toilets in case I need them.
Yeah.
So yes, even I could do with some extra pelvic strength.
Yes.
So
So on that, we should only go to the toilet to urinate 8 to 10 times a day. So if you are going more than that, you might consider going to get that checked.
So I don't actually know, but it's worth me,
Mm.
and if you're listening, if you don't know
Yes.
either, getting a notebook and a pen by the toilet and jotting just a little strike each time, right? So that's
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Because I couldn't tell you how many times I go, and I
Yeah.
probably should know that, so I will
And
find
there's
out.
another thing too called just-in-time weeing. Now, I have done just-in-time weeing since I was a girl coming home from school. As soon as I got home from school, I would need to go to the bathroom. And even when I turned into my street here in Melbourne to my house, I will need to go to the toilet, which is a really interesting phenomenon, if you want to call it that, or incident that happens, and it happens to many women. So one of the things that we talk about is that if that does happen, there are little things you can do to get to the toilet before you're standing at the door holding yourself or wiggling around. So that's about quickly turning on your pelvic floor, doing quick flicks, as we call it. Just you turn your pelvic floor on, off, on, off. I'm doing it as I'm talking to you. You probably can't tell. It's a habit of mine. When I'm instructing someone, I find myself doing it as well. And that can just save you from, having to stand at the door busting. Other people, there's other little things you can do. Sometimes my daughter would say, you just feel the tingle, mum, and it'll go away. And another friend of mine does this thing where she just rubs her leg, and that distracts her enough to go inside. So there are tools that we don't have to find ourselves in that situation.
That's very interesting.
There's lots of little points here, isn't there?
Yeah. So if we were talking about women's health, some women that listen to the podcast are in perimenopause and
Mhm.
they are still cycling. And I know that that's something that you look at also is where are you when you cycle because you train women differently depending on the time of the
Absolutely.
cycle.
So definitely if you're in your cycle, or even if you're not in your cycle and you're just tired, let your trainer know, because you should modify your session. Your body's telling you something. It's not just tired, I'm tired, but if you're feeling really fatigued, or just sometimes it's a mental space, you can tell your trainer and you can modify your session. You don't have to go in and work hard every day. But for a woman who is cycling, there is definitely the best times of the months to train and the worst times of the month to train. So the worst day to train hard, excuse me, is on day 1 and 2.
So that's day 1 of bleed and day 2 of bleed. Some women don't realize where the cycle, what day 1 is. They might count day 1 from the first day of no
Yes,
bleed, but it's, yeah, first day of a full
bleed.
flow
Yeah.
is day
And
1. So don't
some
train
women,
hard on that day.
yes, and some women will feel it the day before as well. But I always say those days are your day for a yoga or a stretch. So it's getting your clients to be confident about that, like with your personal trainer or your group instructor, just to let them know, because we really should back off, because that's when there's during the cycle, there's times that our muscles are not, they're more relaxed, and then you tend to you put yourself into a position where you may hurt yourself. So you don't want to do that. I also heard, now this might not be true, but eating avocados on day 1 and 2 are very good. Not sure what that is, but it's the fat in them. So I always encourage my daughter on her day 1 and 2 to eat lots of avocados and good fat.
Well,
Um,
avocado is the closest food to breast milk. It's also a
mm,
pregnancy superfood. Like when you look at the avocado and the little seed in the
yes.
middle, it's like a pregnant woman with the
Yeah, yeah.
baby. So
Oh,
there might be some truth in that. I haven't heard it for that, but considering it's that linked in with fertility and
yes.
pregnancy and breastfeeding, probably
Mm,
might be.
yeah. So usually that first week, so from day 1 to 6, as you get to that day 6 or 7, and again, this is very individual. You need to listen to your body, maybe write down what's going on, especially, if you kept track for a couple of months, you'll get a really good feel. There's a lot of period trackers out there that will help you see or recognize times during your time of month. But generally, up to day 6, you won't have the same energy. But from day 6 to 21 is usually your peak. And I say usually because everybody's different, but that's when everything, your progesterone is up, your estrogen is up, even your testosterone is a bit up. So we've got all this energy and we're feeling great and we're feeling invincible. And then we go into a bit of a lull and we're going, oh, it's feeling not so good again. Then we go up slightly again and we're feeling good. And then as we go into our period, you'll start feeling that decline in your energy and you'll start going, okay, I'm coming into my period. So you should be backing off. So if you want optimal training, particularly if you're an athlete, because my husband works with athletes, they train to their cycle. So
I like the idea though that, like you mentioned at the beginning, that you listen to your body. So even if you've got irregular cycles and you have no idea where you are, if
yeah.
you're in a peak energy day, train hard.
Mm.
If you're not in a peak energy day, don't risk injuring yourself.
No,
Like,
it's
still
just not
do
worth.
something, but
Yeah. And you know what? You're not going to lose any of your fitness. If you're consistent in your exercise, which unfortunately we need to be, because if we don't keep up our exercise, we do decline, and declines quite rapidly. You can start losing some of your muscle loss within 3 to 4 weeks of no training. So if we go on a holiday, that's great. Go on a holiday, have fun, do whatever you want to do. And body deserves a relax. But, if you go off for 6 months and don't do any exercise, which is unfortunately what happened with a lot with COVID, is the muscle decline was far more rapid. And then you sort of got to start again. So just trying to be consistent, but remember that if you have a week off, it's not going to hurt you.
on most holidays, people I find do more exercise. It's just different exercise. Maybe it's more walking around cities, or if you're on a beach, more
Yeah.
swimming and playing in the water. So
Right. Or there's a lot more walking generally on holidays too.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Mm.
What about exercising as we age? Taking the menstrual cycle out of the
Mm.
equation and just aging in general. Do you change your exercise routine?
Yes. And I'm quite adamant on this because we can undertrain and we can overtrain. And as we age, overtraining can be a cause for overstressing our body, inflammation, not achieving the results that we want to achieve, injuries, pain. So as we age, we can be a little bit, when we're young, we're invincible. And I'm not saying that young people can just go crazy and do that, because they overtrain as well. But they have the ability to overtrain better than we can, but it doesn't do their hormones very good. So that's a whole other topic. However, when we age, what we need to do is keep a consistent exercise. So I know the fitness guidelines would say, 150 minutes a week. I say move every day, but you're doing different things. It might be just going for a walk. So just keep moving, going for a walk, doing something that you enjoy. You probably should do strength exercise. I would be recommending 2 to 3 times a week. So when I'm talking about strength, I'm talking about, you could be doing yoga because there's a lot of strength in yoga and Pilates, but also lifting some heavy stuff. And when I'm saying heavy stuff, your heavy stuff might be 5 kilos, mine might be 8 kilos. So again, listen to yourself. Don't ever pick up anything heavy unless you've started light. But also, as we age, we need to be consistent, but we need to have those consistent exercise days. So that's why I say that we should do some resistance work, which you can usually combine in your days when you're doing your strength work. Half an hour, 30 minutes doing a well-planned session is enough, unless you've got a specific goal. So some women, for example, are still in their 50s. I was reading about this woman the other day who's in her 50s and just done 3 peaks here in the hinterlands of Victoria. She might have a specific goal. So she might be working on particular legs because she wants to have some endurance. But if it's just for your normal health like me, I just keep doing something. So I might go for a bike ride one day. I do my 2 strengths days. I will do a yoga day. I will walk on other days, if not every day, because sometimes I walk to work as well. So it's really just important to keep moving, but not to overdo it. It'll just stress your hormones and will cause inflammation for you.
Yeah. We've also got to be mindful that things like our collagen levels are reducing as we age. Collagen, I think of as like a glue, so it's sticking everything together. So
Yes,
if you don't have as much collagen, then you are more likely to get issues. So it's listening to your body and not going beyond what is painful, I can imagine. And if
I
you do have
think
any
so.
injuries, to not train and to see someone who can help rehabilitate you.
Yes, yeah, and never hesitate to get in a massage as
Oh,
well.
nice.
But I think a massage, we do encourage our clients to have a massage at least every month if they can, and something, whether you can afford to or not. But a massage is really good because it gets into that deep tissue. And then if there's any soreness or any areas that are tight that really need to relax, that's where going to a good remedial massage or even just a relaxing massage is worth doing. Because you made a point before about doing some stretching before you at nighttime.
Hmm.
So I highly recommend that if you can, you have a massage ball, the little spiky balls that you have. If you can get a foam roller, there's
Yeah.
those big foam rollers. Um,
So I was just looking for my spiky ball.
oh,
It's
there's
here
oh,
somewhere. It's out
yay.
of reach though, so I can't show you.
Yeah. So Jen, they're really nice to have at home because we've got them now. I hate them being in my lounge room, so I do have a little box that they hide away into. So, but I do have them in the lounge room, and often where they're watching a movie or something, and one of us has got a foam on the foam roller, just stretching, move, whatever feels comfortable.
Yeah.
If it's rolling on it or just stretching your back over on it or getting the spiky ball under your feet and just gently rubbing it back and forth. Just do what feels comfortable. Don't overdo it. But yeah, do whatever feels comfortable. I think that's an ideal way to finish off a day.
I couldn't agree more. Sounds beautiful.
And there's one more thing, Jen, I'm just going to
Mm.
mention, hydration. So key. If there's one thing that I see I would say, and I'm not kidding, 97% of older women is when they hop on our bioimpedance scales, which I say looks on the inside of your body. So it looks at muscle mass, body fat. Ours looks at hydration. So many women are underhydrated. And that will cause joint pain. It will cause
So
inflammation,
many things.
so many things.
Yep.
So yeah.
I agree. I have a cool message about electrolytes and dehydration.
Mm,
So making sure you're drinking enough water. If needed, possibly pop in an electrolyte, but making
yes.
sure that we do stay well hydrated as we age is
Mm.
vitally important.
And I know so many women go, oh, but this is the other thing, talking about pelvic floor.
Mm.
They don't want to drink water because they're worried they have to go to the bathroom and they're not going to make it. And that is two issues. One, they're dehydrated, and two, they need to get their pelvic floor checked.
Yes.
And can
Yes.
I finish on one last thing? There's a little exercise you can do
Please.
for your pelvic floor. Okay. So this is what we call turning on the belt. Other people call it 1, 2, 3. It is, and you can do this lying down or you can do it sitting up, whatever suits you. My clients do all sorts of ways of doing it. They can sit on a ball, they can lie on the floor, or they can just sit.
Hmm.
And you take a deep breath, you turn on your sphincter. So as we say, your poop hole, just tighten it up as if you wanted to go to the bathroom. Then you pull on your pelvic floor. Then you lower your abdomen in. So it's not pulling your belly button in, it's lowering your abdomen. You hold, and then you let it all release. And you have to turn those muscles off. So I start many of my women doing just 5 of those. They come in, like they do some mobility. We just, get some shoulders moving, hips opening. And then I go, okay, let's do our turning on the belt. Deep breath in, sphincter, pelvic floor, abdomen, hold, release.
So it is that quick. It's not a longer hold. It's just
No,
that
you can just
simple and that quick.
Yep. And that's one. You
Hmm.
can do some longer ones, like holding on for 30 seconds or something like that. But it's just one. And I tell them that's your homework. For many of my women, that's their homework. And I will check on them if you've been doing your homework. And you don't look, you can do it more. It depends on your situation. Again, talk to your allied health person, ask them first, like I do. I work with my allied health. So if I send them off to someone, I ask them if I can then talk to them afterwards
Yep.
and say, or share me the exercises that they want them to do. And we include it into their session. So all very important.
I like that because I really believe that you need a team approach to your healthcare. There's not one practitioner out there that can help you with all aspects of your health. You do really need a team. And
Yes.
I like when you've got a team that talks to each other and that can help
Yes.
each other, and you'll get better results when you are all working together.
Mm.
Belinda, one of the reasons why we decided to chat today was because you've got something very exciting coming up. Your
I totally forgot about that.
your Unshakable Resilient Women series. Did you want
Yes.
to touch on that?
Yes. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm so passionate about women's health. And for me, when I was going through perimenopause, I don't even know if I went through it, but I did know when I was going through menopause. And I had to do a deep dive search into what was happening to me during this time. I didn't have my mum to talk to. My older sister wasn't going through it. And so through that, I found that there was people that I really liked talking to. There was people that I went, oh, they're not really telling me what I need. I had certain symptoms. I didn't have all symptoms. So what I wanted to do with this series was to have the opportunity for other women to confidently take charge of their health and their changing bodies through their 40s, 50s, and beyond. And I have put together 24 amazing women experts, including yourself, yay, who are going to, there's so many different topics that we've talked about. So some things are going to resonate with you and some aren't. This is why I put this together, because you may find that this person really taps into what it is that is bothering you, and this one doesn't. So you can pick and choose which person may be able to help you, but I highly recommend that you listen to all 24 because you're going to learn things about how to minimize your chance of insulin resistance, dementia, Alzheimer's. We talk a lot about nutrition, where you came in, about minerals, and I talk about fiber and gut health and, diversity of foods. I even talk to women about the female brain. There's a little bit there about exercise, not so much about exercise, but I've talked about many women experts. We talk about the pelvic floor and how to train or be educated about how to train with your pelvic floor. And in mind, you may not have any problems with your pelvic floor, but we also don't want to create any problems with your pelvic floor. So learning how to exercise properly and engaging your pelvic floor or your core when it's needed. And I also talk about things like journaling, little secrets of aging well from some wise women, and even to the point of love, sexual relationships, and how that's very important. So we touched a little bit on everything. Yeah.
So when does it start?
It starts on the 10th of October. So information will be flowing out soon. If the women are interested in joining us, they'll just have to opt in. There will be a button for them to do that with their name and their email address. And I
I'll
will.
pop it in the show notes. So if women
Yes.
just go to the podcast show notes, they can get the link and have a look at the event.
Yeah. And then I'll explain a little bit, but it's free. This is something that is a passion of mine. And I have loved, personally, I have got so much out of this. I've learned not only about what is maybe I've got ahead, but what has happened to me during perimenopause, that if I had known, I would have gone through it better. Now, not every woman goes through menopause, as you know. Not every woman going through menopause. I think it's 1 out of 5 have no symptoms.
No,
But
it's two. Yeah, yeah, 1 out of 5, 2 in 10. So
yeah,
2 in 10 have none, 2 in 10 have severe symptoms,
yes,
and the rest of us are somewhere in the middle.
yes, yeah. So that is my hope and my wish, that women come away from this going, okay, so this is what is happening to me, or this is what has happened to me. Here's some tools, some resources, some knowledge, and some amazing women who can support them through our midlife, 50s, 40s, 50s, and beyond.
So, really setting ourselves up for success, not just through the transition, but through the rest of life.
Like I say, I want people to confidently take charge.
Mhm.
We have the power to look after ourselves. And when we have the knowledge, it just makes it so much easier. And it's a beautiful time. This is what I also want to say. I know for some women it's tough. There is some good and there's some not so good, but it is a beautiful time in our lives.
And I love the name Unshakable, Resilient Women. That's what we all want to be.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you so much for creating the series. I'm very excited to be a part of it, and I can't wait to watch the event so I can see the other wonderful women that you've interviewed. Thank you so much, and thank you for being on the podcast today.
Oh, Jen, thank you so much. And if I had known you when I was going through this, you would have been one of my people to go to. That's really, really sincerely felt, because when we talked, I went, oh, this is a woman who would get me. You would have got me. You still get me. I'm still there. I'm still to learn from everybody. It's a constant learning path. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies, that's it. Until next week, bye for now.